that moment when you finally decide you're done? Not in a dramatic way, not with a fight or a speech, just quietly. You stop replying, you stop explaining, you stop reaching out first. And suddenly, the silence feels safer than the people ever did. Maybe you told yourself you're just protecting your peace. Maybe you said you're tired of fake energy, tired of being misunderstood, tired of always being the one who cares more. But if you're honest, when the room goes quiet at night and there's no one left to distract you, it doesn't feel powerful. It feels heavy, like you won something you never wanted to compete for. And you sit there wondering, why does cutting everyone off feel like relief and grief at the same time? Maybe you didn't wake up one day and decide to become distant. Maybe it happened slowly. A few disappointments here, a few times feeling invisible there. You know that feeling when you're surrounded by people, but somehow you're the one holding everything together? The one who listens, the one who absorbs, the one who understands everyone else's moods before they even speak? And you got so good at it that no one ever stopped to ask how you were doing. So you learned something without realizing it. You learned that your role was to manage emotions, not have them, to solve problems, not create needs, to be strong, not soft. And when you grow up like that, when you're the steady one too early, something inside you shifts. You stop expecting comfort. You stop expecting rescue. You become the person who handles things alone. At first, it looks like maturity. People even praise you for it. You're so independent. You're so strong. And you not, because that's easier than saying, I didn't have a choice. Maybe, as a child, you were the calm one in a chaotic house. Maybe you felt like you had to grow up fast. You noticed tension before it exploded. You sensed sadness in a parent's voice. You tried to be easy, low maintenance, not too loud, not too needy. And no one sat you down and said, your feelings are too much. But somehow, you absorbed the message anyway. So you carried yourself carefully. You became responsible for moods that were never yours to carry. And when you've spent years being the emotional anchor, something in you eventually gets tired. Not angry, just tired. There's a quiet exhaustion that comes from always being the strong one. It's the kind that doesn't show up in dramatic breakdowns. It shows up in detachment, in unanswered texts, in canceled plans, in the way you slowly start withdrawing from everyone who once felt important. Because somewhere deep down, you're thinking, if I don't let anyone close, I won't have to hold them up. I won't have to be what they need. I won't have to risk being disappointed again. And if this resonates, you're not cold, you're not heartless, you're not incapable of love, you're overwhelmed. There's a difference. People who cut everyone off often aren't running from others. They're running from the version of themselves they become in relationships. The overgiver, the fixer, the one who overextends and then feels resentful for it. You know that cycle. You show up fully. You give advice, time, energy. You check in. You stay late. You tolerate more than you should. And then one day you realize no one is doing that for you. And instead of asking for more, you disappear because asking feels vulnerable and vulnerability feels unsafe. So distance becomes your armor. You tell yourself it's better this way. Cleaner, simpler, less drama. And on the surface, it is. There's a strange peace in not expecting anything from anyone. But there's also an ache that shows up in quiet moments, when you see a message notification and secretly hope it's someone who truly sees you. When something good happens and you realize there's no one you feel safe enough to tell. When something hurts and you automatically say, I'm fine, even though you wish someone would press a little deeper. Hyper-independence can look like confidence, but sometimes it's just a wound that learned to survive. Maybe you learned early that relying on people leads to disappointment. Maybe your needs were brushed aside, minimized, or met with irritation. So you adapted. You told yourself you don't need anyone. And at first, that belief protects you. It keeps you from begging for crumbs. It keeps you from staying where you're not valued. But over time, it can also isolate you from the kind of connection you secretly crave. Because the truth is, you were never meant to do life entirely alone. And the part of you that cuts everyone off isn't evil or dramatic, it's protective. It's the part that says, I will not let us be hurt like that again. It's the part that remembers how it felt to give and still feel unseen. It's the part that's tired of being strong without being supported. There's also something else, something quieter. Sometimes when you cut everyone off, it's not just about them. It's about you not feeling worthy of being fully known. When you've spent years being the reliable one, the capable one, the mature one, you might not even know how to let someone see your messy parts, your fears, your insecurity, your loneliness. And if you don't let people see that, they can't meet you there. So you end up surrounded by surface-level connections or no connections at all. And then you tell yourself, see, no one understands me, but maybe no one had the chance to. There's a quiet grief in realizing you had to be strong too early, that you learned to suppress softness because softness didn't feel safe, that you became the adult in rooms where you were still a child, that you learned to anticipate everyone else's needs before you even understood your own. And that grief doesn't always come out as tears. Sometimes it comes out as distance, as cutting ties, as saying, I don't care, when you actually care deeply. You know that feeling when someone tries to get close and you instinctively pull back? Not because they did something wrong, but because closeness feels unfamiliar, unpredictable. Maybe you're afraid that if someone really sees you, they'll realize you're not as put together as you seem, or worse, they'll expect you to take care of them too. So you stay guarded, self-contained, you become your own safe place. And that's beautiful in some ways. You survived, you adapted, you built resilience. But you also deserve more than survival. Cutting everyone off can feel like reclaiming power, and sometimes it is. Sometimes boundaries are long overdue. Sometimes distance is the only way to heal. But there's a difference between boundaries and walls. Boundaries say, I will not abandon myself for you. Walls say, no one gets in. And if you're honest, which one have you built? Maybe the reason you feel so lonely sometimes isn't because you're unlovable, it's because you're exhausted from carrying love alone. Maybe you don't actually want to cut everyone off. Maybe you just want someone who doesn't require you to shrink or stretch beyond yourself. Someone who meets you halfway. Someone who notices when you go quiet and gently asks why. Someone who doesn't mistake your strength for invincibility. And here's the part we don't talk about enough. You are allowed to be supported. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to lean sometimes. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. The child in you who learned to handle everything alone might still be steering the wheel, still scanning for threats, still preparing for disappointment, but you're not there anymore. You don't have to prove your worth by over-functioning. You don't have to earn love by being useful. You don't have to disappear to feel safe. Maybe strength isn't about how much you can carry alone, but about how honestly you can show up. What if real independence includes the courage to say, I'm tired, to say, that hurt, to say, I need you? That kind of strength is quieter, softer, but it's also braver. If you've cut everyone off, maybe this isn't a sign that you're broken. Maybe it's a signal, a pause, a moment where your system said enough. And instead of judging yourself for it, you can get curious. What were you protecting? What were you longing for? What felt too heavy to keep carrying? Healing doesn't mean forcing yourself back into every relationship. It doesn't mean tolerating what drained you. It means slowly learning the difference between protecting your peace and isolating your heart. It means letting a few safe people see a little more of you. It means practicing saying no without disappearing entirely. It means remembering that you deserve reciprocity. Maybe start small. Notice when you're about to withdraw completely. Ask yourself, am I setting a boundary or am I building a wall? And if it's a wall, what am I afraid will happen if I let someone stay? You don't have to tear everything down overnight. You don't have to become suddenly vulnerable with everyone. But you can allow yourself moments of softness, moments where you don't have to be the strongest person in the room, moments where you let someone else hold space for you. You deserve connection that doesn't feel like a burden. You deserve relationships where you're not the emotional caretaker by default. You deserve to rest from being the responsible one. And maybe the real healing isn't about never cutting people off again. Maybe it's about choosing differently, choosing people who choose you back, choosing honesty over silent resentment, choosing openness over automatic withdrawal, choosing yourself without isolating yourself. If any of this feels familiar, you're not imagining it. You're not dramatic. You're not too much. You adapted to what you were given, and now you get to decide what you want moving forward. So tonight, instead of judging yourself for the distance, maybe sit with it gently. Ask yourself what you needed that you didn't receive. Ask yourself what kind of connection would actually feel safe. And most importantly, ask yourself if you're ready to believe that you don't have to do this alone.